Hello everyone and welcome to Nervous Nessie. Today I wanted to talk about traveling solo. That's completely by yourself. Now, maybe you are someone who has only ever traveled with other people, maybe you're someone who does frequently travel solo, or maybe you are someone who's never traveled solo but you're really interested in doing it. Today, I'm going to give you the pros and cons of traveling solo. So stay tuned. I want to start with the pros of traveling solo. The first thing is you have the freedom to explore. When you travel solo, you can do whatever you want, whenever you want, and it's wonderful. It is the most wonderful thing because you don't have to wait on anyone else to decide what you want to do. And maybe you really are someone who goes to museums a lot, but everyone that you know hates it. When you travel solo, you can go to every museum you want to. And so by traveling solo, you have the freedom to do whatever you want. The second thing is kind of along the same lines, freedom to eat whatever you want. I don't know how many times I've traveled with people and it's like the never-ending conversation of, what do you want to eat? Well, where do you want to eat? What kind of food do you want to eat? And it's so annoying. And it never fails. Someone ends up eating somewhere they really didn't want to. And by traveling by yourself, you get to eat whatever food you want at whatever times of the day that you want. And you could even change it up. One day you may do breakfast and dinner. The next day you may do lunch and dinner. It doesn't matter because when you travel solo, it's whatever you want to do. Another pro is the freedom to travel how you want. Now, that could be, do you want to fly? Do you want to take the train? Do you want to do a road trip? Do you want to stay in a hotel, an Airbnb, a hostel? When you travel with other people, you have to take into consideration how they want to travel. You may think, hey, I can save a lot of money if I stay in a hostel. I'll travel solo and check that out. But for a lot of people, the idea of staying in a hostel is not a great idea. I'm here to tell you it's wonderful. I've done it so many times and I love it and it's my preferred way of traveling. But if you are traveling with other people, you don't get those options. Your options become very limited. And so when you travel solo, you can travel however you choose to travel. Maybe you prefer taking the early flight. That way you don't have to worry about flight delays later in the day. But everyone that you know that you would want to travel with, they like to sleep in. When you travel solo, you get to pick all of the choices yourself. And that kind of goes along into the fourth pro when it comes to solo travel, and that is you can travel when you want. I was always so scared of traveling solo, but I got really tired of not being able to travel because of everyone else. I wanted people to travel with me, but either they didn't have the money, they couldn't get off work, or they had no desire to go to wherever it was I wanted to go. And so that actually is what prompted me to start traveling solo. And I don't regret it one bit. It has been so rewarding. I know how much time I can take off work, I know my budget, and I know where I want to go and visit. And by traveling solo, I get to do all of that. The fifth pro when it comes to traveling solo is that traveling solo pushes you. Now, if you're someone who loves being complacent and just kind of not changing much in your life, then traveling solo may not be for you. But if you're someone who loves to grow as a person, then traveling solo is the best way to do it because it will push you. It's going to push you out of your boundaries. It's going to push you to meet new people, whether you want to or not. And come to find out, whenever you do get pushed out of those boundaries and you do meet other people, then your life becomes so much more rewarding and you discover a little bit more about yourself that you didn't know if you had traveled with someone else. Now I want to get into the cons of traveling solo because there are cons to it as well. And the first con is that you don't have anyone to bounce ideas off of. Let's say that you are traveling in a city and you haven't planned ahead for every single day of the trip and you don't know what to do. There's no one there with you to bounce ideas off of. Yes, you can call friends and family members, but they're not there with you. They don't see the options. They don't want to get online and try to research stuff for you. And maybe there's a day where you're like, I need to eat, but I'm not in the mood for any particular food. What do I want to eat? There's no one there to bounce those ideas off of and try to come up with something that might sound good for you to eat. Now, I will say a way to counter that is to meet new people whenever you travel, especially if you're staying in a hostel. That kind of takes that con away from you because you can bounce ideas off of the people you're staying at the hostel with. If you're not staying in a hostel and you're staying in a hotel, you could utilize the hotel's concierge or the front desk receptionist and say, hey, where are, the restaurants? What's a good restaurant? Or what's something fun to do? You could bounce ideas off of those people. And maybe even if you're out and about in a city, you just go up to a total stranger that looks like they live there and ask for recommendations from them. That will kind of take away that con, but still just know that that con will kind of be there. Another con when it comes to traveling solo is that you don't have anyone to help you take pictures, video, or help you with your luggage. It's just up to you. Which, I have been doing these videos for a couple years now. I take pictures when I'm out and about and videos and stuff. And obviously I do get myself on camera, but it is a lot more difficult than if I had had someone there with me. And then as far as the luggage goes, yeah, that can be a little difficult. I usually try to travel with backpacks. That way I have a backpack on my back, and then my hands are free to carry other stuff if I need to. But yeah, it is a little kind of a downer to not be able to get the best pictures that you could, or the best video, or you're just stuck with your own luggage. The third con that I want to talk about when it comes to traveling solo is that there is no one there to share those experiences with you. Now, if you're staying in a hostel, you could meet somebody in the hostel and say, hey, would you like to go do this today? And you can share the experience with that person. But it's not the same as sharing it with someone that you already know. I've been at hostels and gone and done things with people that stayed in the hostels, and it was a wonderful experience. But it's different versus it being someone you know, because then you can cater the experience to the two of you. And also it's nice to have someone there that does experience it. That way, when you get back home, you can talk about it. Remember that time we went to this particular place? You don't get to do that. The memory is all with just you. Unless you're someone who does take a lot of pictures and videos, then you're not going to be able to really share that much with anyone. And that's kind of, a negative, because you want to be able to talk about your trips without sounding annoying to everyone that didn't get to go on the trip. The next con kind of goes along with that, and it's the fact that you will be lonely. It is inevitable. Whether you travel sporadically doing solo trips, or if you're someone, I would say especially, if you're someone who does travel a lot and you do it solo, it gets very lonely very quickly, because you start realizing that there's no one there to share those experiences with you, and you will find yourself calling back home quite often, or texting quite often during your trip, and going ahead and sharing the experiences, because there's just something about, you have a wonderful experience during the day, you get back to your room at night, and you want to be able to talk about it. Like, I can't believe this happened today. And there's no one there to talk to. And again, if you're staying in a hostel, you could talk with the people in the hostel room with you, but it's just not the same. The last con that I want to talk about when it comes to solo travel is that it is a little bit scarier. Yes, traveling alone can be scary. It is a little scarier than if you were traveling with other people, obviously. But if you are someone who is always aware of your surroundings, then that can kind of go away. But it's not just your personal safety, like worrying about being attacked or something like that. It's also scarier if something goes wrong. Maybe your flight is delayed or your flight is canceled. You have no one there to help you resolve the situation. It is solely up to you. So it is scarier, but I don't want to say that and deter you from traveling solo. I have had scary experiences happen, and you just have to deal with it. And it kind of goes along with the pro side of it pushing you out of your boundaries. It forces you to face things head on. And that is where you discover what you're really made out of. Are you going to fight or flight regardless of the situation? Are you going to fight for a new airline ticket? Or are you just going to cave in, give up on your trip, and go home? Are you going to fight for the best hotel room because yours was taken away? Or are you just going to sleep in a car? It forces you to get out of those comfort zones, and it is scary, but I recommend traveling solo. I hope you enjoyed this video where I talked about traveling solo. I highly recommend it. I prefer now to travel solo because I am kind of picky when it comes to things, and I hate having an experience possibly taken away from me by having someone else there with me. And all of it, in the end, all of the pros and cons balance out to where you will have a pleasant experience. And if you are someone who has traveled solo a lot, feel free to chime in. I would love feedback on any other pros and cons that you've experienced while traveling solo, and feel free to leave those in the comments below. If you're someone who's never traveled solo and it scares you to death, and you have a million questions, but you're like, who do I ask? Feel free to leave those questions below, and I will get to those as soon as I can. And I look forward to seeing everyone in the next video. Bye!